Haruka is a high school loner like us who finds himself transported to another world with the worst possible skills and is forced to survive solo. Deep in the forest of this magical world, a pack of mischievous goblins is minding their own business, enjoying a lively barbecue and roasting pork over an open fire. Unbeknownst to them, Haruka lurks in the shadows, hiding behind the bushes, waiting for the right moment to steal their food. However, he makes a careless mistake and accidentally steps on a branch, producing a loud snap that immediately alerts the goblins. Startled, the goblins rush toward the source of the noise, while Haruka bolts in the opposite direction. Just as they close in, he suddenly leaps into the air, and when the goblins reach the same spot, they plunge into a concealed pit. It turns out the entire setup was a trap, meticulously planned as a backup strategy to capture them. He removes his cloak and introduces himself to us, explaining that he's just a random guy who's been transported to this isekai world. He recalls the day this phenomenon happened. Going back to that day, Haruka is seen reading manga all alone in his classroom. He is a total loner with no friends and claims that it is his own decision to not hang out with his classmates, bros on pure copium. Anyway, there are many groups in his class, and amongst them, there are the group of delinquents, the girls who think too highly of themselves cause they are hot, the gym bros, the nerds, the class reps, and finally, the normies. Since Haruka is a total weeb, he doesn't deem himself to be fit into any of the groups, and that is why he chooses to be alone. At least that is what he claims, while everyone is hanging out during lunchtime. Haruka is alone, regretting ever being born into this world. Suddenly, a bright light from below illuminates the entire classroom, causing all of the students to panic. Haruka the weeb, however, is unsurprisingly calm when he notices that the bright light is coming from what looks like a magic circle. He compares it to what looks exactly like the one in the manga he is reading. As a proud weeb, he gets excited for a second before realizing that going to another world will be quite bothersome. So, he tries to sneak out of the classroom, but no matter how hard he tries, he fails to open the door to the outside. He tries to break the door open by kicking it and then throwing a chair at it. However, nothing works, and he runs out of time to make his escape. As a last resort, he enters the ceiling through the vents and technically escapes the classroom. However, the magic circle still reaches him and transports him to a cliché, nothing but white room. Haruka expects a fat king or a beautiful princess to welcome him, but there is only a homeless-looking old man in the distance. When the old man notices Haruka, he frantically rushes towards him and asks him what he is doing here after all this time. According to the old man, Haruka's classmates already went through the welcoming procedures and have left for the isekai world. Apparently, this homeless old man is the god of this world, and he presents Haruka with a list of cheating skills to choose from. However, there is a slight problem. The skills in this list can only be taken once, and since all of Haruka's classmates have gone through the list, they have taken the op ones already, leaving Haruka to choose from only the crappy skills. After seeing that none of the skills are worth having, Haruka then takes a look at the equipment lists. He finds that in the Berserker set, every single one of them is taken except for the Villager set. There is also a pair contact lenses in this list as well. Both of them are super useless, so Haruka swipes left and looks at the martial arts set, where there is only a stick left, making him wonder how he is supposed to beat monsters of this world with just a freaking stick. He needs at least a sword or a spear, but there are none left. Well, it was his bright idea to hide inside the ceiling, which led to him being summoned much later, so he cannot blame anyone else. So, he goes back to the skills section again to select from what's left and finds that the only ones there are well-being, calisthenics, and walking. He can't believe that walking is even considered a skill and screams loudly to vent out his anger. He takes a look at the magic section and sees that unsurprisingly types of magic like healing, flame, lightning, fire, dark, charm, etc., all of them are taken. The only ones left are element boost, death, temperature weight, and packing movement, and Haruka has no idea what either of them does. There is a special skill called company communicator, which doesn't make sense as well because, judging by the name, the skill only seems fit for an office worker. In the title section, the only ones left are shut-ins and neats. These are all of the skills on the list, and Haruka doesn't like any of them. so he goes back to talk with the old man, demanding to know if he will even get through the first town with these shitty skills. He begs the old man to give him a better list, but there is nothing the old man can do. So as a compensation, the old man gives Haruka all of the skills left on the list and teleports him to a forest in this world. Standing in the middle of the wilderness, Haruka loses all hope. Haruka expected that the old man would at least show him some sort of mercy and send him to a town or a village. Instead, Haruka is now inside an unknown forest filled with monsters. He takes a look around and discovers a pouch on the ground in front of him. Haruka picks up the pouch, assuming that inside is the villager asset that was in the equipment list. Expecting nothing out of the ordinary, he opens up the pouch and learns that it can hold infinite items, making it more useful than any of his crappy skills. Every single item that he got from the list is stored inside of it, including a cloak, a pair of leather boots, contact lenses, a wooden stick, a ring, and a jewel. Haruka brings out the cloak and wears it, becoming happy that it suits him. He then opens the system menu to look at his stats, but the system interrupts him, telling him that he must first roll a die. Seeing this message, Haruka remembers that there was a certain rule called rolling dice in which if the user rolled 1, for example, 1 point would be allocated to his chosen stat. So, Haruka rolls the dice and hits a double M. He has no clue what M stands for and assumes that it means minus since he is getting hit with the worst luck today. In any case, he allocates all of it to his luck. The status menu then pops up, showing that all of his stats like HP, MP, power, speed, and dexterity are set at 10 points with the only exception of luck, which is set at max points. Seeing that his luck skill is off the charts, Haruka realizes that the M in the dice stood for max. He looks at his own skill and sees that he has an extra skill called Subjugate, which only a guy who isn't in a party can use. This allows the user to make monsters follow their command. Since Haruka is a true loner, he can use it. Now that the overview is done, Haruka starts walking ahead with the initial goal to find some food and make himself a place to stay. As Haruka wears the contact lenses, he learns that it allows him to appraise things. He appraises all sorts of things around him and finds a bunch of edible mushrooms nearby, since his other dimensional bag has infinite storage. He places all of them inside and then proceeds to collect water as well from the nearby river. Haruka sees that there is a cave in the distance, so he goes to explore it, knowing that there may be monsters inside. Inside his bag, Haruka finds a magic lantern and a magic tent. So he sets up camp there and uses his temperature magic to light up a campfire. Seeing that things are going pretty well, he starts to think that the leftover skills are useful as well, taking his initial statement back. Before going to sleep, Haruka checks his status menu again and finds out that his temperature skill has leveled up and he has unlocked fire magic. Wow, somehow everything is working well for the protagonist. Isn't that pretty convenient? The loner in another world wakes up in the morning, feeling relieved that no monsters attacked him. Haruka's item, the magic lantern, had a bonus effect that repelled monsters, so maybe that is why he didn't get approached by anything at night. Haruka's stomach starts to growl, so he sets up a pan over the fire to have breakfast. He cooks some cured meat with the mushrooms he collected earlier and then eats it whole. Haruka got the frying pan and the knife from the villager a set, so he is thankful that the old man allowed him to take all of the leftover skills. Speaking of the villager a set, Haruka wonders who this guy even is and if he was some sort of wilderness survivor. In any case, Haruka must figure out where he will go from here. He figures that the cave will work as his temporary home, so all he's got to work on now is food and security. While exploring the forest, Haruka collects some mushrooms that refill stamina and some medicinal herbs in case of an injury. Out of nowhere, Haruka's appraisal skill detects 2 goblins nearby, who should be the weakest mobs according to the norms. However, judging from their stats, they are way stronger than Haruka is. Haruka knows that he will have to fight the monsters of this forest eventually, so he decides to do it now. He infuses some of his magical energy into his trusty stick and hits the first goblin in the head. With the second goblin remaining, Haruka yoinks it away with a heat blast attack, passing his first battle with flying colors. Haruka gets filled with confidence. He brings back one of the goblin's weapons to the cave, although he deems it useless as it's quite heavy. Haruka opens the status menu and learns that he has leveled up. As a reward for leveling up, all of his stats and skills have doubled, making him realize that he can just get overpowered by bullying poor goblins in the forest. Haruka has unlocked a new ability called Magic Wrap, and on day 3, he uses it to boost his physical stats plus his defense. Haruka goes out to explore the forest again and first looks for food to eat. He has already grown sick of collecting mushrooms, so he decides to level up his stats instead and covers himself with Magic Wrap before going out on a hunt. With enhanced movement speed and physical ability, Haruka dashes through the forest at swift speed and hunts down 2 goblins behind the bushes before they know it. Haruka becomes so confident that he decides to take on 3 goblins at once. This time, he gets scared by their masculinity and so sneaks out of there, deciding to level up his stats more before taking on more than 2 enemies at once. From there on, Haruka hunts goblins every day and improves his magic at night. On day 5, Haruka becomes strong enough to defeat a goblin with 1 hit, so he focuses on decorating his base more and adds a gate to the cave. At night, when Haruka is hunting down a rabbit, his perception skill detects someone nearby. It's Haruka's classmates. Firstly, there is the delinquent group, the popular girls group, the gym bros, the nerds, and the class reps. Being the unsocial loner, Haruka doesn't want to do anything with them, but he is secretly a fan of the class rep, and that is why he takes a step forward hoping get one glance at her. But bro stops himself as he is a big fan of solo leveling and convinces himself to stay true to his loner ways. Seeing his classmates, Haruka quickly hides himself behind the bushes. One of the guys in the delinquents group hears something moving in the bushes and becomes suspicious of it. He deduces the exact location where the noise was coming from and, like a villain, slowly moves his hands towards it, making even me, the narrator, feel like I'm about to be violated. Thankfully, when the delinquent moves the bushes away, only a rabbit comes out of it. This leaves the entire delinquent group disappointed, and they walk away hoping to find something interesting to amuse themselves. Haruka is relieved that he was undetected, but he doesn't run away from the forest to be left unseen. Instead, he goes to spy on the delinquent group, even though he himself states that he doesn't want to get involved with the likes of them. The only reason he is spying on them is because he is curious as to why they are here and what they are gossiping about. He stands carefully behind a tree and eavesdrops on their conversation. From what he hears, the topic of the delinquents' conversation is the measurement of their class president's melons. According to them, those chug jugs still stand out even in this isekai world. It's a pretty lame and disappointing conversation, but what else can you expect from a 3rd grade gang of perverts? Haruka cannot believe that these creeps are the same as ever and recalls how whenever they set their eyes on a female, they make the same trashy, shitty remarks on their clothing and legs. He becomes concerned for the girls though, as there is no law and order in this medieval world. He remembers that their dependable class president is leading the girls and becomes certain that she will teach the delinquents a lesson if they try to cross the line. Anyway, the blonde guy bullies one of his group members for a second because that's what they do, and then subtly mentions having a skill that can help them get girls to do whatever they want. All of them then head back to their classmates, and so Haruka also heads back to his cave, showing no further interest in the people he doesn't care for. For dinner, Haruka cooks mushrooms, again. While the mushrooms are being roasted, he checks his stats menu and finds out that his loner job title has leveled up. It's probably because he hid himself from his classmates. Jokes aside, Haruka wishes to increase his overall base level, which is currently at 3, and wonders if he should start grinding goblins again. He has the Master of None and Blockhead skills and wonders what these 2 skills even do. After researching them for an entire hour, he discovers that the Master of None skill makes him unable to focus and unable to hone any skills at all. However, it also has its perks. It lets him do other household things pretty well, allowing him to tidy up his cave house even more. On the other hand, the Blockhead skill's name refers to a puppet on a string, meaning that the puppet is useless. Haruka finds this skill to be completely worthless and decides to vent out his anger on the mushrooms by eating all of them at once. He becomes upset once again as he is completely fed up with eating mushrooms over and over and hopes that he could eat at least fish, if not meat, one day. Later at night, when Haruka is about to sleep, he hears the noise of swords clanging and goes out to check who is causing the fuss. He assumes that it's those delinquents, but still goes out to check since it's currently midnight. Much to his surprise, he finds that it's actually the nerd group who are trying to take down a pack of goblins all by themselves. Haruka laughs seeing the nerds struggling for a second and then wonders if he should help them out, to make sure that they do need his help. He first appraises them and finds out that their average base level is 16 and they have way better jobs than he does. As a matter of fact, Haruka is the only guy whose job isn't an actual job. He gets kind of jealous seeing that everyone else has cheat skills, while he's only got the worthless leftover skills. Haruka tells us more about his school and its students. Being one of the top schools in Japan, Haruka's class was full of the best athletes in the entire nation. Not only that, they had the A-graders, children of celebrities, and the future supermodels. So, it's a mystery to Haruka as to how and why a below average, low-IQ student like him ended up getting into the same school. Anyway, Haruka ends up choosing not to help the nerds because it's pretty typical for nerds to be experts in an isekai world. As he is about to leave the place, his appraisal skill detects a dangerous presence, and he sees that there are two goblins who are approaching the nerds behind their backs. Not wanting the nerdy nerds to get injured, Haruka steps up with his stick and takes down both goblins in a matter of seconds. He then turns to the nerds, who didn't even notice that he came here to help them. Haruka gets thanked by everyone, but he fails to give them a reply because he simply has forgotten how to speak with people. So, instead, he leads them to the cave to show off his base and leaves them completely stunned. All of them are amazed to see how well Haruka is doing in this world, even though he is all alone and happily explores around the house. Since they are his guests, Haruka pretends that he didn't see the others coming to this forest, and while serving them tea, he asks them if they came out here alone. The nerds reluctantly reveal that they are all currently on the run. To elaborate, they go back to the very day they got transported into this world. After finding themselves inside of a forest, most of the students panicked while the nerds discovered the status menu because, well, they are nerds. The delinquents threatened to beat the nerds if they didn't teach them everything as well and got to learn about the status menu as well. The class president kept her composure and asked everyone to calm down, telling them that they shouldn't cause any noise as that could attract the nearby monsters. Perhaps she jinxed it, because at that very moment, a pack of goblins holding wooden clubs attacked them, making even the class president lose her composure. Not only the girls, even the toughest of the toughest, the delinquents lost their **T. Quite unexpectedly, only the nerds stepped up to save everyone's asses and brought out their pre-chosen gear to fight the goblins. The guy advertising McDonald's protected himself and his team with a shield. The guy who handicapped himself by blocking his eye with his hair used his sword. The regular-looking guy hit the goblins with a hammer. And lastly, the typical nerd with the nerdy glasses used magic spells to knock out the goblins. Seeing the nerds doing their part perfectly, the delinquents regained their confidence and stepped up to help the nerds. Both groups worked together and defeated all goblins without any difficulty. The class president played the role of a leader and instructed everyone to move somewhere safer. Soon after, they found a riverside area, and with the nerds' isekai knowledge, they set up camp there. The class president put everyone to work by placing them into different teams, and everything went well as they worked as one well, until they didn't. One of the girls from the self-entitled group demanded to know they had to do all this work. They no longer wanted to help the team and ditched their classmates. And following their footsteps, the delinquents also counted themselves out, leaving the nerds to do all of the work. The class president requested that everyone work together, but nobody listened to her any longer and counted themselves out, telling the president to handle everything alone. The class that came together fell apart in seconds. Still, the president and the nerds didn't give up and kept doing all the work while the others slacked around. They didn't work at all and kept complaining about how boring everything was in this world. When a group of goblins attacked their camp, Only the nerds stood up to defend their base. The nerds overworked themselves, but still they kept on going and grinded levels. The leader of the nerds found out that there was a skill called Charm that granted the user control over people. Then there was another skill called Puppeteering, which is pretty self-explanatory. The delinquents picked both of the skills from the list back when everyone was inside the White Room. The girls knew that the delinquents would use those skills on them, so they also leveled themselves up to stand up to the delinquents. However, the delinquents didn't give up so easily. They too leveled up their stats by hunting down goblins at night and discussing their schemes in the dark. The nerds kept a close eye on them and learnt of their plans of creating a harem. Not knowing what to do, they reported everything to the class president, who wondered what they should do to stop the delinquents. First and foremost, she decided to level up her skills as well, because she too is a girl, and decided to deal with the delinquents later. A few days passed, and the delinquents succeeded in unlocking their charm and puppeteer skills. They decided to use that skill on the president, but that ended up badly for them as the president defeated all of them in no time, rendering them unconscious. The nerds came there at that very moment, and one of them used their concealment skill on the delinquent's charm and puppeteer skill to ensure that they never used it again. The nerds exposed the delinquents' forced harem plans to everyone, so everyone unanimously agreed to kick the delinquents out of the camp. But this wasn't the happily ever after the students were expecting it to be. The delinquents came back again and attacked the students at the camp, showing them no mercy at all. They set the camps on fire and left after burning everything down, telling the students that they would be back again to make them suffer once again. The nerds took all the blame on themselves for what happened, which led the self-entitled girls group to point their fingers at them even more. The president defended the nerds, telling everyone that they did nothing wrong, but almost no one took her side and forced the nerds to also leave their unofficial clan. The nerds took off and then came to this forest where Haruka found them and brought them to his house. After listening to this entire story, Haruka is extremely sympathetic towards them and decides to throw a mushroom party to cheer them up. The next day, he spends the entire day with the nerds and realizes that sometimes it's fun not being a nerd. At the end of the day, Haruka is still a solo player, so he bids the nerds farewell, wishing them best of luck on their journey and hands them a bag of mushrooms as a parting gift. After everything about the president, Haruka begins to worry for her as well and decides to check up on her. He explores the forest in search of her and encounters a cobloid that bites his left hand. After beating the cobloid's head with the wooden club several times, Haruka knocks it out and wins the battle. He then continues to explore the place and eventually finds the riverside campsite, which is completely empty. Suddenly, his appraisal skill detects an enemy nearby and even shows him the footprints of the said enemy. Haruka follows the footprints and finds that the footprints are of the self-titled girl groups. He doesn't want to encounter them at all because he knows that he will only end up getting belittled by them. The girls see Haruka's face and chase him, asking him if he isn't friends with the nerds. Although Haruka is on good terms with the nerd group and has traded many comic books with them, he doesn't feel comfortable calling them his friends. Still, he stops, asking the girls why they are looking for them since they were the ones who drove them away. The girls explain, saying that they want to apologize to the nerds because it was for them that they are still alive. They further explain, stating that their survival skills are 0, and without the nerds, they are really struggling in the forest. Haruka doesn't want to sell out the nerds, so instead he decides to teach the entitled girls how to survive on their own. They also beg him to teach them how to survive on their own, which triggers his subjugation skill to activate at that moment, placing all of them under its effect. If I remember correctly, allows the user to command the entities around them. This basically means that he can now command the 3 girls into doing whatever he wants, like making them hunt monsters for him or gather materials for him. Because they are currently under the subjugation effect, they cannot do a single thing without Haruka's command, making him question how he is supposed to cancel it. At that moment, the president comes there and becomes happy to see that Haruka is alive and well. Haruka becomes startled when he sees the class representative standing behind him, screaming his name out of nowhere. He calls her by her title, which triggers her, as she thought he would at least call her by her first name since they've known each other since first grade. Following the class representative, the other girls arrive, exhausted from running all the way there. However, their presence is not that important, so Haruka doesn't pay attention to them and explains to the class representative why the self-entitled girl group is acting so weirdly. Since he cannot tell her that he accidentally gained control over their minds, he wonders what excuse he can come up with, while the class representative grows more suspicious of the situation. Considering all possible scenarios, he realizes that he isn't going to get out of this situation by making an excuse. So he reveals to her that the 3 entitled girls led by Shimazaki are serving him as their master. The class representative is disgusted by Haruka's pervy actions and demands to know why he would use the subjugate/servitude skill on them when it is only supposed to be used on monsters. Haruka promises that his skill activated on its own and claims to not know how it even works. None of the girls believe his lies, even though he is telling the truth, and they give him the sharpest glares, sending chills down his spine, realizing that they now think he is a total creepy perv. Haruka decides it's best for him to silently walk away, but before he can make his escape, the girls stop him, saying they must punish him for his sins first. The class representative repeatedly shakes Shimazaki, the leader of the self-titled girl group, resulting in Shimazaki regaining her consciousness. Now that she and her friends are back, the investigation process begins, and the class representative asks all of them about the minute details of their interaction with Haruka to confirm if he is guilty, even by the slightest measure. Haruka, in the meantime, is left alone in the distance. He decides to use this time to practice expanding his home base. By activating his skill, he tries practicing his technique on how to create a basement, but it backfires, resulting in everything except for his head getting stuck in the ground. The class rep comes there being worried for Haruka and ends up becoming totally confused seeing only his head above the ground. He explains, saying he ended up in this position after experimenting on one of his skills. She brings him up, lifting him above the ground with her bare hands, showing that she is worthy of being called a strong woman. Now that all of us, including Haruka, are feeling intimidated, the class rep decides to pass down her judgment on Haruka for his actions. From what she heard from Shimazaki and the others, she has concluded that Haruka was only trying to help them out, and so she and the others apologize to him for misjudging him earlier and thank him for showing them kindness. Now that everything is cleared up, the loner wants to go back home, accidentally revealing to the girls that he has made a base here during his free time. He nonchalantly tells them that this house can fit 200 people easily and has several kitchens, toilets, and baths in it. As the girls learn that Haruka is basically living in a luxury on his own, they forcefully tag along with him to his place, wanting to stay there for the night. So, does this change the anime to no longer allow to be a loner in another world? Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, Haruka guides them through the entire forest like a professional navigator and welcomes them to his humble abode. Haruka's cave looks like a luxurious mansion now, so of course the girls are more than excited to stay here. After exploring the living area, kitchen, and toilet, the girls learn about the massive bathroom and completely forget about Haruka's existence and jump straight into the bathtub. Haruka is basically living the anime nerd's dream, and as he sees all of the girls acting like total savages, his brain overloads, being unable to stand being around a bunch of girls. The loner sees himself out and goes back to his bedroom to have a good night's sleep. Suddenly, the class rep comes to his bedroom, wanting to thank him for helping them out. She tells him her sad backstory, telling him how every single one of their boy classmates abandoned them, leaving them to die alone in the unforgiving forest. But now that the girls have a place to stay, they are feeling a lot better and have calmed down. The class rep is upset at herself for not being good enough, and Haruka offers her some comforting words, telling her that she is a good person and should never compare herself with someone else. The class rep feels better thanks to Haruka and gets going for the night. All of that compliment went down the drain. Isn't that right, boys? The self-titled girls seem to have their own lavish bed in the guest room, and one of them murmurs in their sleep, saying, "I am sorry, Oda." Oda, being the leader of the nerd group, This girl feels sorry for ousting them from their base a few days ago. Haruka, in the meantime, can no longer sleep. He can only imagine having a harem for himself, but that's too much of a stretch as he is supposed to be a loner in this isekai world. The next early morning, a purple-haired girl wakes Haruka up, telling him that she's made breakfast for him. Bro has never received such special treatment, and he has no idea what's about to happen next. The girl comes real close to him, telling him that she has made grilled fish for him, asking him if he doesn't want to eat it. He becomes super excited hearing that there's fish for breakfast and completely ignores this potential love interest for a mere meal. After jamming heads together, Haruka has a taste of the grilled fish. His first bite makes him so excited since he had never tasted anything like this since he came to this world, watching him eat like a monster. The girls wonder what the excitement is about, especially since the water where the fish was gotten had been right in front of him the whole time. At that moment, he reveals that he had never caught a fish from the river, but only spent his time watching them for fun and eating mushrooms. When they seek to know why he never caught one, he reveals that they were so fast and slimy for him to catch. Not wanting to get rid of this new delicacy, he asks them how they were able to catch the fish. At first, they laugh at his question, but eventually reveal that they used lightning magic belonging to one of the girls to catch it. After demonstrating it to him, he is thrilled beyond imagining and begs the girl to do it one more time. When she does, he uses his packing skill to wrap the magic in a box. This helps him to grab a fish with his hands for the first time, and he feels so fulfilled. Doing this also gave him lighting magic, which is an after effect of the combination of the packing skill and Master of None skill he possessed. This helps him to attain other magic skills. Hearing this, the girls are thrilled and claim that he got the best powers. However, he reveals that he only got the powers they left and nothing special since they had picked all the best ones. After that, he feels the urge to pee and leaves. Later on, the girls spend time playing in the water, while Haruka inquires from the class rep what the girls will do from now on. In response, she reveals their plan to get to the nearest town, which happened to be where the nerds were headed. Hearing her say this, he immediately assumes they are heading there to hunt down the nerds like he had thought. As much as the girls try to convince him that they only want to apologize to the nerds, he doesn't believe them. Amidst this, the class rep states that she hopes the girls could level up before they start heading to the town. Rich Haruka agrees to and offers to help them out. Happily, the class rep accepts his offer and once again lets him know that they do not intend to hunt down the nerds. This time, he believes, claiming that he had always anticipated a showdown between the nerds and the girls. The next day, all the girls line up, ready for training as Haruka takes the lead. Before they start, he wishes to know what level each of them are. When they begin stating their levels, he realizes that they are all above level 15, which is way more than his current level 7. Even before he starts teaching them, the girls start nagging and complaining, while he spends his time telling in his disappointment. Shortly after, he senses a noise coming from the bushes and notices some kobolds hiding. This comes to him as a perfect opportunity. He seizes it to inform the girls that their first test would be to defeat the 3 kobolds hiding in the bushes. Revealing the kobolds' location, he suggests that it should be an easy battle since the kobolds are of low level. Hearing this, the girls are pumped to show off their skills. They believe it would be easy to defeat such low-level monsters. Unfortunately for them, they get their sorry asses whooped by the kobolds. Watching them lose so pathetically, Haruka gets angry and lashes at them, but they continue to give excuses, claiming that the kobold is so fast and bites. Due to this, the girls avoid fighting them anymore and all go into Haruka's magic tent for their safety, although they claim they are only here to review their last battle. This happens to be true as the girls step out of the tent to exact revenge. Watching them leave the tent for the battle, Haruka is pleased with their determination. However, when he turns around, he sees the purple-haired girl from earlier in the morning. She apologizes to him for what happened earlier and claims that she was only testing him. Apparently, she was traumatized from her experience with the notorious boys' attack days before. Since she assumed that all men are scum, she got worried that Haruka was like them. Hearing her say this makes Haruka realize that the girls must have gone through a lot during their stay here. On the other hand, the girl acknowledges that Haruka is nothing like the other boys since he had given them shelter, food, and taught them to fight. To thank him even more, he offers to wake him up every morning and prepare fish for him, which the hungry idiot agrees to. The next morning, like she said, the purple-haired girl brings some grilled fish for Haruka. While he enjoys the meal, he hears the voices of the girls on their way to fight the kobolds once more after their continuous losing streak. He hoped that someone would stop them since he was too busy snacking. Fortunately, the class rep charges out and demands that they stop and train harder before they fight the kobolds. Thankfully, they listen to her and begin training. Days later, when they are ready, they go to face the monsters. However, just before the battle begins, one of them takes a nap by the side while some fake sickness to escape the fight. Amidst this, a few of them who had trained closely with the class rep stand up against the monsters and end up securing a victory. They are all driven by their need to be strong enough to find the nerds so they can apologize for chasing them out. After securing the victory, the girls are overly excited and Haruka finally breathes a sigh of relief. Now that the girls had learned to fight, Haruka is pleased that they would leave him soon and he can get back to his life as a loner. However, the class rep had assumed all along that he would go with them. Before the girls head out, Haruka hands them bags filled with my mushrooms, but chooses to remain behind and dwell in his loneliness. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, one of the boys is attacked by an anonymous villain and ends up losing his life. The story continues deep in the woods of this isekai fantasy world. A short recap for you guys. The delinquents have unlocked their pervy skills and are currently chasing after all of the girls in Haruka's class. And consequently, they have run into the absolute loser, who has taken it upon himself to protect them from those nasty perverts. Haruka has already realized that staying in the forest is no longer an option for them as there's too many blind spots around, giving way too many opportunities for the delinquents to sneak an attack on the poor girls. To avoid that from happening, Haruka and the girls are now leaving the forest. On their way out, they run into a giant orc at level 11. But the intimidatingly large monster doesn't even scare our protagonist holding his legendary wooden sword. He avoids the rather slow orc's incoming attack and hides behind a tree without the monster even noticing. While the orc is left dumbfounded, Haruka picks which type of magical attack to use on the orc, revealing to us that he has already unlocked all 4 elements when grinding skills in this world offline. The orc manages to find Haruka, but still fails to land an attack on him. With swift speed, Haruka leaps on top of the dumb monster, bonks on its head, making it fall, crashing on the ground in slow motion. Not only the girls, even Haruka himself is left surprised seeing how overpowered his physical attacks are, making him realize he doesn't need to use his magical powers just yet. Another orc arrives shortly after, but this time Haruka doesn't play around and channels a ball of fire in his hand, throwing it directly at the wandering orc. The orc dies instantly, making all of the girls jealous of Haruka and his leftover skills. Later at night, the girls enjoy a feast carelessly while the only responsible person sets some traps around the camp using his earth magic to keep the enemies from approaching them. Since the tents at the camp already have monster repellent effect, Haruka activates his presence detection skill, making 100% sure that all of them stay fully protected. Now that this part is done, the loner opens up the forest map using his map skill, which he unlocked from leveling up his appraisal skill. He takes a look at the routes leading to the end of the forest and decides to use the riverside route, as it is much more open and safe. Suddenly, the presence skill detects an anomaly nearby. So Haruka goes to check it out, assuming it's the delinquents. But it turns out to be the Jim brothers, who are on friendly terms with him, even though they aren't friends. Haruka jokes around with the Jim bros, asking them if they are also chasing after the girls, which causes them to become super defensive. Their leader Kakazaki claims that they aren't interested in the girls at all. Rather, their goal of coming here was to meet Haruka. Haruka gets even more creeped out hearing this, jokingly commenting if the Jim bros are into K-pop. Because, you know, K-pop fans are. Anyway, the gym bros are apparently hiding from the girls because they no longer trust anybody. Their leader Kakizaki explains by revealing to Haruka about a dangerous skill named hijack, which perhaps can hijack people's minds and skills the details are not undisclosed yet. That is why this skill is far worse than puppetry and mesmerize that the delinquents group uses. And since the gym bros don't know who has this skill, they are being wary of everyone around them. Haruka tries to scare them, claiming he is the one who has it, but it only makes Kakizaki relieved, as he knows that this loser is the nicest loser in their class. Kakizaki goes to the main point, saying that he only came here to warn Haruka about the hijacking skill and tells him to stay safe from now on, promising that they will deal with the delinquents themselves if they ever run into them. He also asks Haruka to tell the girls sorry on his behalf for abandoning them and then leaves the place. The class rep reveals to be eavesdropping on the boys' conversation, and it doesn't look like she has enjoyed it very much. The next morning, the class rep takes Haruka aside to have a talk with him, reluctantly telling him that she eavesdropped on their conversation last night. She apologizes to Haruka, saying that she should have told him about this much sooner. And as she continues to hesitate, Haruka realizes that she is the one who has the hijack skill. That is indeed true, and the class rep reveals that she has already told Oda, the nerd group's leader, about this. Actually, using the hijack skill, the user can steal a person's skills if they take their life. But Haruka doesn't think it changes anything at all, as he knows that the class rep is a good person. Haruka expresses how relieved he is to see that she is the person who has this skill and assures her that the others will be relieved as well if they find out about this. The class rep's eyes fill with tears as she listens to Haruka's heartwarming words. He chuckles, noting how often she's been crying lately. She playfully blames him for it, subtly hinting that his words are helping her move on. Oblivious, Haruka doesn't catch on, and he quickly takes off before the internet has a chance to cancel him. Moving on, Haruka and the girls continue their journey for an hour or two and then decide to take a break midpoint for a drinks break. But it doesn't come for free. Haruka turns himself into a salesman, announces that he is doing a special sale today, and tries to sell fresh juices to the girls. Yeah, he is being playful here, making jokes. But one girl doesn't get that. She lifts her shirt up and offers to pay with her you-know-what, since she doesn't have any money on her. Haruka plays along, telling the girl to lift her shirt up even more if she wants his special juice. But his moment is ruined when the class rep intervenes and forces him to close the shop he just opened. Advancing deep into the forest, Haruka is pleased that the girls have advanced even more than he had thought they would. However, since night was drawing near, he began to consider the idea of camping out. Looking ahead, he realizes that they are now close to a river. Seeing this river makes him have the thought of trying out a new skill he had gotten. Before trying it out, he informs the class rep Ro take care of the girls while he is gone for a bit. As an excuse, he claims he wants to scout the area, but seeing how suspicious he looks, the class rep wonders what could be going on in his head. She asks to come with him, but he immediately refuses and runs off. With full speed, he dashes deep into the forest and begins the new skill by firstly using the magic infusion skill. After that, he makes use of weight magic to lighten the weight of his magic. By mixing these two skills, he is able to leap up in the air and begins to jump from one tree branch to the other like a monkey. Thus power makes him faster and lighter, even giving him the impression that he can fly. With this belief, he jumps up further in the air and finds himself floating. For a brief moment, he experiences the feeling of a Superman, but immediately falls back to the realization that he is just the stupid Haruka. He loses his balance and falls face flat to the ground. Fortunately for him, he still has his sorry life because he had enhanced his body with magic infusion. On the bright side, he was able to figure out their next route using these powers. Later in the night, when he returns to meet the girls, the class rep is worried that he got himself beat up after going to scout. She seeks to know why this is so, but he reveals his Superman adventures to her. Hearing this, she doesn't believe a thing he said, even though he tries to assure her that the sky is more dangerous than any monsters. Watching her nag, Haruka doesn't seem familiar with this kind of situation since he never had to report his activities to anyone before. To ease the tension, he hands her some fruits he got and offers Ro make her some juice. She doesn't seem interested in this and walks away after hearing his offers. On the other hand, another girl comes charging and wanting the juice he offered, but he bluntly states that it's only for the class rep. The following day, they all continue their trip to find the nearest town. Fortunately for them, Haruka's scouting the previous day had made them find a faster route. On their way, they found the girl who got lost earlier, and the girls decided to take a dip in the water under the watchful eyes of Haruka, who found this uncomfortable. While trying to avoid this uncomfortable situation, he encounters a large monster and is left to face the monster family on his own while the girls run for their lives. After fighting off the monsters, they continue their journey and eventually get to the end of the forest, seeing that they have made it out of the forest in one piece. All the girls are so excited. The class rep thanks him for helping them and assures the girls that they would soon get to the town. Even though they have gotten out of the forest, Haruka still finds it hard to see the road ahead due to the numerous hills surrounding them. To help him with this, he checks his stats and finds that he now has a new skill called airwalk. This skill allows him to walk on the air, and he flexes it out in front of the girls who are thrilled to see him floating. When the class rep calls out to him, he informs her that he would like to check out the area to be sure it is safe for them. Looking around, he realizes that everywhere is peaceful. Not until he finds some people being attacked by dozens of wolves. Citing this, he immediately informs the class rep about it. Hearing it, she clearly states her intentions to help them. But Haruka doesn't feel the need to since they might not be good people. Amidst this, the class rep starts making plans to help them, but he assures them that they won't get there on time. He further reminds them that the men could be bandits, with saving them not being a risk he wishes to take. Just as he turns around to leave, the class rep grabs his hand and assures him that she will take them down if they turn out to be bad people. However, she wishes to help them just in case they are good people. Hearing her say this, Haruka is pleased. He then offers to save them himself and protect the girls in case they turn out to be bad. While all the girls are surprised by the act of bravery, he channels his magic infusion and weight magic, combining it with wind magic, which he uses to transport himself to the location of the men. This wind causes a little hurricane that leaves the girls scared for a while. In the air, he uses his airwalk skill to push himself. Just as he dwells in the awesomeness of this power, he finds the class rep holding on to him midair, since he couldn't drop her now. He goes ahead with her, and the two end up crashing into the monsters. Fortunately for the men, the crash caused all the monsters to be taken out. Out of gratitude, they introduce themselves to him. One claims to be the leader of the party named Ofter, while the other is named Godek. Shortly after, Haruka hands them some mushrooms to eat, and they find it incredibly yummy. During this time, the class rep remains passed out from the crash. Surprisingly, they have elves in their party, and when the girls eventually arrive at the scene, they are all thrilled to see an elf for the first time. As a sign of gratitude, the elves led them to the nearest town, and the girls couldn't hold back their excitement after finally seeing something different from the forest. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the delinquents make plans to attack the girls and have their revenge. However, before they do that, they resolve to find the nerds first and take them down.